Hello, guys, and welcome to CastCast. I am your host, Cassidy Streeter, and today we are analyzing the Thursday night football game where the Jets visit the Patriots. Obviously, for this game, we look at it and we notice that it is the first game that these division rivals are meeting. Obviously, two ends of the spectrum. The Patriots haven't yet had a bye, but have looked impressive through, I would say, pretty much the whole season. The Jets obviously are on a two-game win streak, but lost, the first seven of the year, ultimately condemning them to, oh, hey, this team can build and can maybe, some guys can show their ability. But overall, I think that you look at the Jets and they're clearly playing for the future with the trades, Quinton Williams and Sauce Gardner. I think they really held on to Breece Hall, if I'm being honest with you, because of the injury to Braylon Allen. I think that if Braylon Allen wasn't hurt, and if they wanted to give someone more opportunities, he would have been the guy. But otherwise, with Breece Hall and the uncertainty behind Braylon Allen, because his injury was pretty bad, I think that they're like, we're not willing to kind of just move on and have nobody at running back, is I think the whole reason of why he didn't get traded. I don't think it had to do with them. I think they were asking high, but I think they would have went with, one of the offers that they had to a team that, obviously isn't in the division, likely isn't in the AFC. And there was definitely teams interested if Braylon Allen was healthy who could serve as their primary back, because I think he was very good last year in his rookie year, and the guy is only 21 years old. Obviously, Breece Hall is still very young. But looking at this game, we've got the Patriots as 13-point favorites in this game. They're obviously at home. They just played against the Buccaneers, who obviously have a way better offense, even with how banged up it is, than the Jets. The Jets really didn't do much offensively and had special teams and defensive plays against the Browns to get them ahead and ultimately have them win their game last week, where they only won by 7 against the Browns, who aren't obviously a very good scoring team, but they obviously gave up they obviously gave up quite a bit of points to, probably because, oh, hey, you don't have Sauce and you don't have Quinnen anymore. And the Patriots, as we've seen, the last time they lost was a game against the Steelers when they had like three very costly turnovers and then a week one anomaly to the Raiders. But overall, this team has been putting up a respectable amount of points, the lowest being 23 in all of their wins. And the defense is playing very, very sound. I think that they still need some more pieces, if I'm being honest with you, to be like considered like a realistic sort of championship caliber team. But I think that they have good pieces, and clearly Drake May is a very good QB, kind of like I thought last year when it's like they didn't have an O line. They addressed O line in the offseason with a draft pick and then bringing in Morgan Moses and bringing in Stephon Diggs. So you have a veteran wide receiver, but Booty has been good. Last week we had Kyle Williams with a touchdown, and of course, like I said, Stephon Diggs is kind of that veteran presence. But also looking at this game, Garrett Wilson is also doubtful. He is likely to be out. I don't know why they're listing him as doubtful. It's obviously mind games. But another thing I guess about the Patriots is that they don't really have anybody that's on. They have people on IR, like most teams have at least a couple guys, but they overall are a very healthy team. If you're looking at, New York, obviously you have Garrett Wilson, and then you have Adonai Mitchell, who you just traded for, Arian Smith and Tyler Johnson. I don't know how they're going to get it done with this wide receiver core when Garrett Wilson was their leading receiver with 394 yards. So they're likely to not have even 1,000-yard wide receiver unless somebody turns it around. Their defense, obviously without Quinnen, Will McDonald is the leader, and he has the leader in sacks. Otherwise, past that, they don't really have anybody. with a lot of sacks and that sort of thing. Jamie and Sherwood has been a very solid player for them, getting a lot of their tackles. And Brandon Stevens in the secondary has been their best corner, I guess, and it is their best corner now that Sauce is gone. But overall, this team just needs a lot more from these other players. I don't think Jermaine Johnson is really doing that much. Harrison Phillips, I think, was a good addition because he's a good run stuffer. But overall, this team just doesn't have the talent, I think, to really score and keep up with New England. And it's like I said, Diggs, Booty, and Williams, and then their O line with, Campbell, who was good, and Morgan Moses. And then you look at this defense. Christian Barmore and Milton Williams very, very good at stopping the run, and they're the outside. Iris Tonga is obviously, their nose tackle, 339-pound guy to stuff the middle. And then you have, Chason and Landry have been getting pressure on quarterbacks. And you look at Justin Fields, he's been sacked a good amount of times this year. I believe at this point, 25 times. So looking at this, yeah, obviously it's kind of interesting. You kind of have, this QB comparison, and somehow Fields does have a good passer rating under pressure for whatever reason. They obviously don't make a lot of big time throws. Obviously, Fields threw his first pick last week. But overall, you look at May, and I mean, they're able to make, nearly 4 times as many big plays, or have the opportunity to. And May obviously isn't turning the ball over a lot, or he wouldn't be in the MVP conversation. But looking at this game, I don't think that there's really much to say about, the teams. Looking at, I guess, the Patriots, if you look at lineups, the the um the Patriots obviously have Diggs, who's performing at a very high level, Booty higher than a lot of people probably would have given him credit for. But then you also have Henry, who's been doing good. And then if we look here at if we look at 12 personnel, Hooper's even been doing well, which this is a team that, so they have a lot of reliable targets, to go to, and Drake May is distributed everywhere. I guess we didn't really talk about too much about this, but I think that, Stevenson has had a rocky season, but then you have, oh, and I guess they don't show it here. So obviously, Ramondre Stevenson's having it tough, but Travion Henderson, who they drafted this year, I think is going to continue to prove why he should maybe be the guy. He had kind of a run that was reminiscent, in all honesty, to Jonathan Taylor's, where he ran up the left side and he just outran everybody last week on the Buccaneers. And overall, I think that you look at New York, and more than likely the guy is going to get to the linebacker level, and he's going to be able to, he's probably going to have to make Sherwood miss, and then that's going to be kind of the be all end of it. You hope that he can, the Jets can tackle him, but I think Travion Henderson can have a really good game. And to me, the only plausible way that you win as the Jets here is if you are able to keep the ball out of Drake May's hands. I think that, it's way easier said than done, of course, but I think Breece Hall needs to have some kind of a game to really, quiet the fans and be able to, make sure that Drake May is going to have limited opportunities. But overall, I got the Patriots winning this game, of course. I just don't see them, losing the first matchup between these two teams. And I think looking at the Bills, the further away you can pull away from them, the better, because you've already beat them once, and you could have this division wrapped up, somewhat early with the way the Bills have looked. They've looked very, very, iffy, and especially losing to the Dolphins within the division, a team they beat earlier this year, and you just look bad, down in Miami. But tell me what you guys think. I think this is kind of a lackluster of a Thursday night game. Most of them kind of have been. Last week we got a 10-7 game. I'm one to talk. Obviously, it was a 10-7 game with my Packers and Eagles. But overall, to me, looking at this, I think that, it's going to be a doozy of a game for the Patriots, unless the Jets and it's going to be a measuring stick for how far this Jets team has to come and for Aaron Glenn to understand that, like, hey, this is what we'll need to beat these guys, because without Garrett Wilson, like, I'm sorry. And a guy who, Adonai Mitchell, hasn't really played that much. So it's like, how much chemistry can you really expect between him and Fields, a guy who hasn't really been dicing anybody up and has been playing very safe football? But tell me what you guys think. And as always, go Pack, go.